My sister, Crystal, was convinced she was a dead ringer for some billionaire's late wife. I'm talking like the kind of resemblance you see on those celebrities in their doppelgangers lists. Anyway, she decided that meant she was destined to be Mrs. Billionaire 2.0. So, being the brainiac she is, Crystal hatched a plan to meet the guy's wife, Bethany, and accidentally arrange a little accident for her. I'm talking hit and run kind of vibes. I got wind of this scheme and managed to get to Bethany before Crystal did. I chewed Crystal out on the way home, trying to knock some sense into her. Look, Blake Sterling didn't build his empire by being stupid. He's a freakin' shark. Your amateur hour plans will get you busted, and you'll drag the whole family down with you. Crystal actually nodded like she understood, but then she went home and poured Drano, the most dangerous cleaning chemical, into my water glass. I got her words burned into my brain with pain. You're just jealous because I have the face to bag a billionaire. You're ruining my fairy tale, so I'm ruining you. Then I woke up. Back to the day she hatched her scheme. The screech of tires and a sickening thud ripped through the air. Crystal, without missing a beat, bolted toward the scene. She was kneeling beside the woman on the ground, screaming, "Forget the car. Somebody call 911 now." Crystal, wearing a full face of makeup that looked like it had been professionally applied, started doing CPR, going straight from mouth to mouth without even flinching. Her fancy dress was soaked in blood. Anyone watching would have thought she was a saint. The ambulance and a gaggle of reporters arrived almost simultaneously. Crystal, glaring into the camera, snapped, "Have you people no decency? This is about saving a life, not getting a story." She turned, practically shoving the paramedics to the victim, Bethany. "Doctors, please help her. She's so beautiful. She can't die so young." One of the doctors, clearly moved, responded, "We'll do everything we can. Are you family?" Crystal shook her head. "Just a passerby, but I'll go with you. Help with the bills, whatever it takes." The doctor praised her heroism and rushed her into the ambulance. As she turned, she swiped Bethany's cell phone without anyone seeing it. I watched the ambulance pull away. 30 minutes later, a black SUV screeched to a halt at the intersection. A guy in a gray suit jumped out. Blake Sterling's right-hand man. I recognized him from the news. He surveyed the scene, then started talking to the cops. I pulled out my phone and texted Crystal. "Me saw you on TV, Crystal. What the hell did you do?" Her reply was immediate. "Crystal, none of your business." That got a smirk out of me. Crystal had watched too many Hallmark movies and thought every billionaire was a sap. She had that one accidental brush with Blake, and he told her she was a dead ringer for his late wife, and now she was seeing dollar signs and wedding bells. Last time around I tried to talk her out of it, and I ended up paying the ultimate price. This time the first thing I needed to do was distance myself, make sure I wasn't collateral damage when Blake Sterling came for her. I was just about to head home when the hospital called. They had a patient in critical need of blood, and they wanted to know if I was available, stat. Crystal and I both had a rare blood type, O negative, and our information was in the blood bank system. Hearing someone was desperate, I rushed to the hospital without even thinking. Turns out, the patient who needed the blood was Bethany Sterling. After they took my blood, I headed to the waiting room. Crystal saw me and froze. "What are you doing here?" I sat down, saying, "Heard someone needed O-neg. Just doing my civic duty." I glanced at her, then asked, "What were you doing there anyway?" After I found out about Crystal's plan, I had tried to talk her out of it, even threatening to call the cops on her. Crystal, nervous that I was catching on, offered, "Just passing by." "Oh," I replied, and I shut my mouth and just closed my eyes. When I didn't press it, Crystal couldn't resist bragging. She leaned in and whispered, "Janice, you know who that woman is? Blake Sterling's wife. Blake said I look just like her when she was younger. Once she kicks the bucket, I'm gonna be the next Mrs. Billionaire." Usually when she talked like this, I'd tell her to wake up and smell the coffee, but this time I gushed, "Wow, congrats. When you're the first lady of Sterling Enterprises, can you get me a job?" My blatant ass-kissing clearly boosted Crystal's ego. She snorted, "Mom and Dad are right. You're destined to be a servant. Here I am, about to be filthy rich, and all you can think about is being someone's employee." Just then, I could hear Blake Sterling's voice outside in the hall. Crystal's face lit up like a Christmas tree. She jumped up, ready to make her grand entrance. She turned back, hissing, "You stay here. Don't you dare ruin this for me." We were identical twins. She was afraid I'd steal Blake's attention, but she didn't need to worry. The last thing I wanted was to get anywhere near that situation. I didn't want to be in the way if and when karma came to strike her. But then Crystal gave a low giggle. "Actually, your face doesn't matter." Her tone made it clear what she meant. We looked alike, but I wasn't as physically attractive as her. Crystal took our same features and was like my face but amped up to the max. She was pretty, I was not. Crystal sashayed out, and a minute later I heard her comforting Blake, putting on this fake breathy voice that made me want to gag. Having just given blood, I wasn't feeling great, so I curled up and took a nap. When I woke up, the hallway was silent. I checked the time and decided to head home. The elevator seemed to be broken, so I went to the stairs. I had barely stepped into the stairwell when I heard Blake and his assistant talking. "Sir, Mrs. Sterling's phone was pinging from the hospital, and now it's moved away." I froze, holding my breath. Luckily, neither of them noticed me. Blake's voice was like ice. "Investigate discreetly. Keep the cops out of it. Bethany would never be caught dead in that kind of neighborhood. Something's off. This Crystal girl is too convenient. Start with her. If I find out someone hurt Bethany, I'll make sure their entire family pays." I shivered. Rumor had it that before Blake Sterling became a CEO, he was a street brawler, even did time in prison. Terrified, I hurried home. As I walked through the front door, I heard Crystal and my parents laughing. Mom, fussing over Crystal's sacrifice, buying her tons of supplements to replenish her blood. Crystal waved it off. "You gotta crack a few eggs to make an omelet. The medical expenses are just to stay in touch with Blake." Dad sighed. "Giving the money would have been enough. Why give blood? You're A-O-neg. How long before you replenish it?" "Well, that's how Bethany is dead now." Crystal smiled slyly. "I already found out that Bethany has a mango allergy. I ate a bunch of mangoes before donating blood. She's dead. Soon, The three of them started daydreaming about Crystal's future as a trophy wife. I made a point of walking into the living room, pointing at Crystal, and demanded to know how she could have done such a thing. Seeing me, the three went silent. I grabbed Crystal's hand and feigned walking out. It's not too late to confess. Crystal pushed me away, telling me, Janice, you're crazy. My plan is seamless. There are no cameras. The car's gone. No one will suspect a thing. I frowned at her. Do you think rich people are as dumb as you are? Bethany Sterling is a socialite. What was she doing in the bad side of town? And all those witnesses, and finding a reporter to cover this? You're so stupid. Crystal hesitated, but was quick to recover her posture. No one will ever trace it back to me. Janice, you're this worked up. Are you jealous? I'm worried you're gonna ruin this family. If you don't turn yourself in, I'm calling the cops. I no sooner finished that sentence than my hair was grabbed from behind. Dad yanked me back, kicking me in the knees. I cried out and fell to the floor, but he wouldn't let up, smacking me in the face. Your sister is doing this for this family, and you're going to call the cops? I should have choked you when you were a baby. Mom cheered him on. Hit her again. That one has to be beaten. Crystal crossed her arms and laughed. Hit her harder, Dad. Don't let her ruin everything. I closed my eyes and braced myself as Dad started kicking me. I remembered the last time too. After Crystal slipped poison in my drink, I had begged my parents to take me to the hospital, but they ignored me and watched as I slowly died. I'd never understand why I was the scapegoat and Crystal was the angel. We were twins, but Crystal wore the new clothes and went to the good schools. All I did was do chores and wear whatever clothes Crystal grew out of. The pain kept getting worse and I counted down. A few minutes later, the neighbors knocked, asking what was going on. Dad stopped, telling them, she tripped. After Dad kicked me again. Do you get it now? If this had happened before, I would have told him no. I flinched like a frightened rabbit. I told him, I get it now, Dad. I shouldn't have said that about Crystal. Dad wasn't satisfied. Are you going to call the cops? No. Dad let off the rage. I begged my mom and sister to forgive me. Mom sneered. Stop it and make dinner. I'm starving. I got up and put on an apron. Crystal's phone buzzed, and she started screaming. Bethany's dead. I have to get to the hospital and comfort Blake. She ran to her room to change, and my parents offered to drive her. After they left, I packed my bags and left this household. The neighbor saw my face and frowned. Your parents hit you again. When he saw my bag, he tooted. Just go. Someday, they'll kill you if you stay here. I thanked him and hailed a cab. The radio announced that Bethany was dead. Blake Sterling announced $1 million bounty for information. The driver was amazed. Imagine how brave that driver has to be. And Blake Sterling has all the resources to find him. It's like a death wish. I nodded. The driver added, and remember what Blake Sterling used to be? He just needs a reason to go back to the streets. Whoever did this is as good as dead. Again, I agreed. I should have felt bad, but I was also terrified. For the next few days, I saw news stories about Bethany, and my sister was trending for being the beautiful and selfless bystander who tried to save Bethany's life. She posted a video of herself crying. I'm so sad. I should have been able to save her. Behind her, Blake stared at her with a complex stare. Crystal sent the video to our group chat. Crystal, did you see the way Blake was looking at me? He has a crush on me. My parents agreed, fantasizing about their future lives of leisure. I added one sentence. Me more like he wants to kill you. Crystal had had enough. She boasted in the group chat. She sent screenshots of the text messages Blake had sent her, where Blake thanked her for her support. She asked Crystal, do you think he has feelings for me? I couldn't resist. Me. He's probably just trying to get you to confess. There's nothing he can't do. And why would he pick you? Crystal lost it. Crystal, I'm going to kick you when I see you. Dad replied, Dad, where are you hiding? I'm going to find you. The three of them called me every name and said they would kill me if I turned them in. I looked out the window of my apartment. I moved into a cheap apartment after I left home. By chance, it was right next to where Bethany was hit. Every day when I got off from work, I saw Blake's right-hand man going into the stores, checking security footage. 2 days passed, and Crystal sent another message. Blake was inviting Crystal and my parents over to his mansion for dinner. Crystal, bet you I'm going to be his future fiancé. I didn't reply. Crystal was too busy trying to seduce Blake to notice that anything related to Bethany had been scrubbed from the internet. The cops had stopped investigating. Blake's assistant stopped coming to the area. They were being set up. They were screwed. I was about to go home when a black SUV pulled up. Blake's assistant was in front of me. Ms. Janice, my boss wants to speak with you.